It's more evident now than ever that our organizations need diversified funding, that relying on one source of funding can really cripple the tourism marketing efforts and the destination marketing organization altogether.
Okay, guys, since we started the Destination Marketing Podcast a little over a year ago, I've had several destinations reach out and say, hey, could you help me start a podcast? And at first we were kind of like, well, no, that's not really what we do. But after enough requests, we said, you know what, let's explore this. And we've created a turnkey program for destinations where we will produce, we will host, we will edit, and we will publish your podcast for your destination on a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly basis. And all you have to do is show up and answer some questions. We're really excited about this program. We've got a few destinations that have been doing really, really well with their podcasts. And if you've ever thought about creating a podcast for your destination, but you don't have all the equipment, or you don't have the expertise or any of that type of stuff, let us take that off your hands. Let Relic handle your podcast creation and production, and all you have to do is show up and answer questions about all the amazing things there are to do within your destination. So let me know if you're interested. Email me at adam@relicagency.com and we'll get you set up on this podcast program. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Stoker. Excited to be with you again today for another great episode. You know, we've had a pretty busy summer of recording episodes of the Destination Marketing Podcast, and it has turned into a great lineup. And today's show will be no different. We have the largest group that we've ever had on the show together today. It is the team that has been involved in Mobile, Alabama's initiatives that they're working on. And I'm really excited to have everybody here today. Let's start with David. I'd love to have you introduce yourself and your role and your organization, and then we'll just kind of go down the line.
Hello, Adam and everybody. I'm David Clark, and I'm with Visit Mobile. We support the tourism for our great city. I've been here about 3 years, and thrilled to be here. Thrilled to be with a bunch of innovative lodgers. And, we just had a great announcement with cruising from Mobile returns again with the Sensation, Carnival Sensation. So there's just a lot of continued great stuff going on in Mobile, Alabama.
Great. And speaking of innovative lodgers, Margo, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Good afternoon. My name is Margo Gilbert, and I am the general manager of the Renaissance Battle House Hotel here in Mobile, Alabama. I've been here for the last 15 years. I opened the hotel 13 years ago, so I've been embedded in Mobile for quite some time, and I'm really super excited about some of the things we've been working on over the last 7 years.
Great. Thanks for joining us. And another innovative lodger that we have, Kent, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Thanks, Adam. Kent Blackinton, general manager of the Renaissance Mobile Riverview Plaza Hotel. Been also in the market for 13 years with Margo here, side by side. And I'm also the president of the Mobile Area Lodging Association, which is part of the innovation we're going to talk about today.
Perfect. And also have some Utah ties. So you and I have been in the same location at the same time, but have not crossed paths in person.
Not yet. Maybe September.
That's right. Okay. And last but not least, Tiffany, can you introduce yourself to us?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Tiffany Gallagher. I work for a legal and consulting firm based out of Sacramento, California. The name of the firm is Civitas. And we specialize in the formations of tourism improvement districts across the country.
Wonderful. And we're going to be talking to you a lot today, Tiffany, and really everybody's going to have a key role in this conversation. But before we dive into all of that, we still want to ask our icebreaker questions we like to ask at the beginning of every show. So I'd love to do kind of a rapid fire, go through the same order that we did, that you introduced yourself, and tell us, if you could go anywhere in the world, what would your dream destination be?
Yeah, this is David Clark. Besides where I work, live, and play, Mobile, Alabama, I think that actually I would go back to Banff, Canada, because I loved it so much.
Oh, David, I'm so disappointed because I was supposed to go to Banff this year in April to actually start my CDME training. And unfortunately, that was canceled with COVID. So I'm dying to get back there.
Yeah, you got to go.
All right, Margo.
Great question, Adam. I think that I've always had this great fascination with South America, specifically Chile. So I don't know where I want to go in Chile, but that's next on my big travel list.
I like it. All right. Kent.
Yeah, this is Kent. Where do I start? I have been to Europe, but I have not been to certain parts. Greece and Italy specifically interest me. But one that always has stood out for me, being kind of an outdoors person, is New Zealand. I think the culture there and the landscape there is really something I'd love to go see someday.
Awesome. Awesome. And Tiffany.
Also a long list. I would go anywhere, I think. But Iceland is on my list for sure, and Sicily, Italy as well.
Oh man, you guys all have great answers here for the dream destination. We're going to reverse the order. We're going to start with Tiffany. Let's talk about your favorite trip you've ever been on, Tiffany. What was that?
Mobile.
Yeah, Mobile is exempt. We can't say Mobile on this one. You got to pick another one.
Oh, Paris, France.
Why Paris?
Why was it my favorite?
Yeah.
It was just a completely different experience. My first trip out of the country. So culturally, it was an experience. I was able to experience a lot of historic elements that, everyone wants to see in their lifetime. So I went with four of my girlfriends. We literally drank champagne all day, every day, and had croissants and coffee every morning. It was just awesome. It was great.
Sounds incredible.
Right?
Incredible. Awesome. I'd have more questions, but we got several others to get to. Kent, tell me about your favorite trip you've ever been on.
It's hard to pick between two. I did 20 years ago go to Fiji and spend a week in Fiji. So that's as beautiful as it looks in all the brochures, and just had a great relaxing time there. But I will say 2 years ago, I got the opportunity to go to Whistler Blackcomb, and I'm not copying David here and going to Canada, but that destination was just fantastic. Everything they do, from the hospitality to the activities, the ski hill, the accommodations, it was very top notch. And I don't think I can beat it at this point.
Two very different destinations,
Yep.
Fiji and Canada. I've been to Fiji, so I totally get the Fiji side. And it sounds like the Whistler is an amazing place. So great answers. Let's ask Margo. Tell me, Margo, what's your favorite trip you've ever been on?
My favorite trip, for sure, I got to spend 2 weeks in Australia, and just going to Sydney and seeing the Opera House, Bondi Beach, and then going further north, scuba diving in the Great Barrier Reef. You just can't beat it. It was on my bucket list for, I don't know, by the time I was like 5 years old. So I just had a fantastic time there, and just the people were wonderful and warm and hospitable, and I just can't say enough about the country.
Oh, I'm jealous. So jealous. Okay, David, how about you?
I just thinking back, I think when I went out to Sonoma, Napa Valley, and drove Highway 1 and went to some fantastic vineyards, very remote kind of stuff. I thought that was really cool, just to sit back, relax, no agenda. It was just a cool time.
David, I've had a few people on the show name that same trip. It must be a pretty amazing trip to have it keep coming up like that.
It was incredible.
Great. Great. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for answering those questions. We need to dive into the meat of our show because we've got great subject matter today. So, David, I'd love you to kind of start as the president and CEO of Mobile, Alabama. I would love to have you walk us through that destination. What makes it unique? And give us the general overview.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people don't know this, but we're like the America's Amazon. We're one of the largest ecosystems in the world, where the rivers, the deltas, the bay, the Gulf meet. There's some tremendous eco from downtown Mobile, and that's an upcoming thing that we're going to expand on with our destination in terms of asset development. I think that in terms of the diversity with the leisure, the bleisure, the convention possibilities in our regional drive markets are incredible opportunities. When you look at, I think when a destination, you have to have a great downtown to really thrive. And our downtown is number one, walkable with fabulous culinary options that are authentic. Our Dolphin Street Entertainment District is incredible. Walking down that street, and you have 50 plus restaurants and bars to pick from. And again, very, very authentic. I think we have some of the most iconic lodging in the country. When you look at Margo's Hotel, it's a top 500 hotel in the world by Travel Leisure. It's on Historic Hotels of America. They've had, numerous accolades, tremendous world-class spa, two Renaissance brands, which are represented here today on this call, Spike and Margo, top guest satisfaction in the country. We have Admiral Curio. So we're represented downtown walkable with Marriott brands, Hilton brands, so on and so forth. If you look at the diversity of our city and the history and the culture, we were the founder of Mardi Gras back in 1703.
Wow.
So that's a really big deal. And then I think our next big thing, it continues to be heritage tourism and the discovery of the Clotilda, the last slave ship to enter America, was recently discovered about 8 months ago. And that story is unfolding. So, those are some of the high points. I could go on forever. And just with our wonderful announcement, cruising's really been set back since the pandemic, and Carnival just announced that you can cruise from Mobile again when cruising starts with the Sensation. So there's just a lot to do.
Wow. David, it sounds like an amazing destination. 30 years ago as a kid, I lived in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and my grandparents lived in Mobile. And I would go to Mobile. My memories are fairly faint since it was so long ago, but I would imagine that Mobile has changed a lot over the years.
You have to come back soon, Adam.
All right, I'm in. Let's go to Tiffany, and Tiffany, we're going to be talking to you a little bit about these tourism improvement districts. That's the purpose of our conversation today. And you're with Civitas. I'd love to have you give us kind of a general overview of Civitas and what it does, and then kind of how this Mobile project started and what you've seen from it.
Sure, happy to. So Civitas really was born from the concept of business improvement districts. Our president and CEO, John Lambeth, is a property attorney by trade, and he was involved in formations of business improvement districts in California. He was asked to be a legal part of the formation of the very first tourism improvement district. And it really was inspired by a group of hoteliers in West Hollywood, California, in the early 80s, who really needed a supplemental form of funding to fund their tourism marketing efforts for purposes of driving new room nights to their destination. And so they identified the business improvement district model as a good opportunity for the lodging industry to use that model and really morph it into benefiting lodging and tourism at large. And so from there, the first tourism improvement district was formed, again in West Hollywood, California, over 25 years ago. Since then, this really the same inspiration is behind all of the almost 200 formations. Since then, we have 17 states, with Alabama, with the Mobile formation being the first in Alabama, adding to one more state with these districts. And the inspiration really is the same universally, in that tourism is largely underfunded. It's not funded proportionate to the amount of economic impact that it produces. And the reason why is because the primary mechanism that funds our tourism marketing efforts is based on allocation of bed tax. So bed tax collection, occupancy tax collection. And generally that is appropriated. And I'm speaking generally, this is in some areas, it is more specific, in some it's a bit looser, but generally it's an appropriation from the local government, sometimes the state government, back to the destination marketing organization for those purposes. And is not always proportionate to the need or to the economic impact that destination marketing effort provides to the destination. And so the hotels are the primary beneficiaries of these efforts. And if the destination has a need to drive more room nights, which most do, most of the time the existing funding is not adequate to do so. And so a supplemental form of funding is needed. So these districts are and have been supplementing marketing efforts for the last 25 years. They've been very, very successful. They're privately motivated, as you can see with Kent and Margo on the line, and they're going to tell you the story as this progresses. But that's really the foundation of the TID, and Civitas supports that effort. Really, John Lambeth is the founder of the concept, and we are the nation's only comprehensive firm that focuses on the formations of these districts, both to be from A to Z, consensus building, bringing communities together, best practices, planning, and from the legal perspective, drafting and bringing the client through the hearing process.
Great. And I totally agree with you that tourism as an industry is underfunded for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned there. I want to ask David one more question, and then we're going to dive into our hoteliers here. But David, it took from start to finish. In fact, it predated you and your role 7 years to get this tourism improvement district created and implemented. Can you walk us through a little bit of that process and why it was a long process?
Yeah, sure, Adam. Thanks. It certainly predated me, and with Spike and Margo being on here, they've been here in each of these 7 years. But before me, the great Al Hutchison, who was the CEO before me, who's now at Visit Baltimore, it was his idea, and the collaboration began at that time. When Al departed, there was about a 6-month gap, and I came on board, and that was a little over 3 years ago. We took about a year with a little more collaboration with our lodging team. Some of them had changed to garner the petition support and the understanding of what this great innovative program could do for a city. And we tweaked the plan at the last moment with the city and with some of the assessment methodology that came into play. And this required some amended legislation. So we went back to our state capital, Montgomery, to get some of the language changed, legally boxed up. We then came back to our lodging establishments, re-petitioned. We got the support, and July 1st of this year, collection began. So that is a very quick 7-year synopsis.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot in between those points, but that's a good overview for us. Okay, I want to get into Margo and Kent. Margo, as you went through this process, tell me a little bit about, how it was originally presented, what your initial reaction was, and then how did that progress in your mind over time?
Sure. Thanks, Adam. So, David had mentioned earlier, Al Hutchinson had floated this idea out to us. And 7 years ago, we were, as a city, really kind of struggling with having enough marketing dollars to, tell our story, sell our story. We were, I don't want to say severely underfunded, but, I sit on the board with David and over at Visit Mobile. And as an organization, we were struggling. And Al floated this idea out. And I don't think he had it completely out of his mouth when I said, yes, this is exactly what we need to do. This is where we need to go.
So not a hard sell.
It was a very easy sell. I think in my mind, in all of our minds, we knew, we needed to do something different, but we didn't know what that looked like. And TID was really the right option for us moving forward. So, as David had mentioned and Tiffany, it's, there's a lot of collaboration, over the 7 years with city leaders, state leaders, hoteliers, even our restaurant community and attractions community, we had to tell them to get them on board as well so they would understand what the benefits would be for them as well.
Great, great. And Kent, as the head of the Lodging Association, what did it mean for you? Like, what was your reaction, and how were you able to get all the hotels on board?
Yeah, I think echoing what Margo and David said, I think we understood that there was a need to provide some more funding to drive room nights, which is what everybody wants. And this provided an opportunity for us to do that, one that we hadn't seen or heard before. I took it as the Lodging Association needs to be the organization that drives this process. I mean, yes, it started with Visit Mobile, but it takes all the hoteliers getting on board to make it happen. So I kind of took that mantra with everybody and just said, this needs to be us. Are we interested? I think people were timid at the idea at first, but also excited because I think there was finally an option out there for us that we've all been waiting for and that people have been, complaining about or whining about for years and years and years. And it's like, look, here's our opportunity to stop whining, get on board and do something ourselves that we're in charge of. So I think there's a little history. Like there was a similar effort early on in Mobile, even prior to my time, with a county tax it was built in a similar way to a TID that it worked, but it didn't work as much as it was envisioned because, as Tiffany had said earlier, a lot of times it's appropriated by a municipality, and in the end, the county tax was appropriated by the municipality, and we didn't have control over it and we didn't get all the money out of that we were looking for. So this was a more innovative model that's kind of ironclad, that we get to control everything we do and we get to make the decisions. And really, once it's passed by city council, nobody can touch it. Nobody can change it. So we started there. We started with a steering committee in the association. We included our attractions and our restaurateurs, like Margo said, started with Al. It's really a big education process for everyone. That's what takes so much time. And then one thing I think everybody needs to realize is that, yeah, we had the Lodging Association, but in reality, when you look at our entire city and the entire market, only about half of the hotels are members of the Lodging Association. So to get this going, you all of a sudden have to bridge these gaps and make these connections and form these relationships with another half of the hotels out there that are not part of this organization. So that's why it takes some extra time and some extra work. It took 7 years of work to get there, and it's like it's like
wow.
a test case in perseverance, I guess. But
yeah, no easy task. But
no, it was.
I want to have David kind of walk us through, the before and after of the TID. It's kind of nuts and bolts. What does it mean for Mobile? What was the state before, and what's the impact after? And we're going to do that right after we come back from this break. So hang with us, and we'll be right back with David's answer. You guys, I have been working on something for the last 6 months that has been such a giant project, but I'm so proud of it. I'm excited to announce that I've just released my book. It's called Touch Points, and it's the Destination Marketer's Guide to Brand Evaluation and Enhancement. And it is a comprehensive guide for destinations to look at their brand, evaluate what you've done, and make a very clear and detailed plan of action of how to fix it. And look, I'm biased, right? Because I wrote it, but I think it's so good. I think it's a great guide, and I'm really, really happy with how it turned out. And I wanted to tell you guys about it. It's available on Amazon. Search Touch Points by Adam Stoker, and you'll be able to get that book for your destination. And I think it's going to be, especially for anyone that is trying to look at their brand holistically, this is the book for you. So check it out. All right, we're back, and we've got David ready to tell us a little bit about the nuts and bolts of this tourism improvement district. David, why don't you let us behind the curtain a little bit?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think Spike and Margo are downplaying their leadership, and
Hey,
Tiffany.
I got a quick interjection here. I just want to make sure everybody understands. Spike is a nickname for Kent, or have we
No.
established that?
Well, Spike is Spike. I mean, he's really Kent, but he's Spike. Everyone calls him
I
Spike.
kind of need to know where that comes from.
I like to tell people it's from my motorcycle biker days, but it's really just a bad haircut I had in the 90s.
Awesome. Okay, sorry, little bit of a tangent there. Let's get back to you, David.
Well, first of all, you have to have total trust and transparency in your lodging community to get something like this, to garner the support, to have it come to fruition. So, Spike and Margo and the original board foundation of this did a wonderful job of collaboration and getting with all of the lodging community. All of them included everybody. And Civitas, no way we could have gotten to the goal line without Civitas. So you need huge lodging collaboration and trust. You need Civitas on board, and you need your DMO, I think, to understand what a day in the life of the hotelier is. I mean, because I think that's really important too. The before and after this is, in essence, $1.5 million more a year for the lodging community to spend on driving room rights and what those elements are. They've never had that before. We've never had that as a city, and primarily to spend that on leisure marketing. On the other side of that was that I know our destination marketing organization will be forever thankful for the lodging community, because in this is a deal that just stabilized our funding for the next 5 years. In the most unbelievable times ever, we are guaranteed a minimum base budget, lodging dollars for our organization can continue, where a lot of the DMOs have now been cut drastically. The city agreed to keep us at a minimum baseline level for our budget, and as lodging tax increases, so does our budget. So we're parlaying the money in the better times and joining our lodging community to market our destination more. So we would have never had that opportunity. So it was just tremendous timing with this.
Yeah, so not only is it an additional $1.5 million, but in a time when destinations are getting their funding cut across the country, you were actually able to have that fail-safe of the tourism improvement district funding that allowed you, regardless of government appropriation, to be able to continue to market Mobile as a destination. I think that is as far as illustrating the value of these tourism improvement districts, I can't imagine a better way to illustrate that.
Exactly.
Well, Tiffany, why don't you tell us, first of all, if there's anything in the nuts and bolts that maybe we've missed of a TID, let us know that. And then I'm sure there's several destinations listening saying, hey, does this make sense for me? So my question to you is, does a tourism improvement district make sense for every destination? And give me kind of the why it would or why it wouldn't.
Sure. Backing up a bit, I think it's notable that Mobile's timeline of 7 years is a record and not in a good way.
Hey, congrats, guys. Congrats on setting that record.
In most cases, the timeline is about 1 year. There are some pieces that were really unique to Mobile's formation that just could not have been foreseen, namely folks that were involved in the process changing hands. We had a city council attorney change hands midstream. And really, when you have some key elements that change hands, you have to pause and educate. Spike did a good job of talking about this. There's a lot of education that is required in order for any person or entity to really be on board. And because it is a legal process, there's some serious consequences if something goes wrong. And so all players really need to understand and want to understand everything they can before they move forward. Second question, does it make sense for every destination? Why or why not? That's a really big question, but I would say, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's more evident now than ever that our organizations need diversified funding, that relying on one source of funding can really cripple the tourism marketing efforts and the destination marketing organization altogether. So our firm, while we are experts in the TID formation process, we also we specialize in DMO funding. And so there are many options, as you know, to fund a DMO. And we think that a TID is, of the options, the most stable option. It is secure. It is a private source of funding that is not legislatable by the government. Therefore, it's not divertible. It is managed by the stakeholders. So the stakeholders have a say in ultimately the spend of the funds and the success of the district, which then makes it more likely to be successful in the long term. It also inspires collaboration, requires collaboration in order for it to succeed. So, does it make sense for every destination? I think there's a lot of factors that play into that. One would be, what is the type of destination? How engaged is your local government? Is tourism a driving economic factor? There's a number of things, but I would say if you're going to diversify your funding, that TID is a key element to that.
Awesome. And you know what? I'd love to post in our Destination Marketers LinkedIn group. We also have a Slack channel in both of those places. Maybe a list of the other ways to diversify your funding that Civitas offers, because I think there's a lot of destinations that aren't sure what other options are out there. And we've all seen over the last little bit the volatility of having that entire funding appropriated by the local government.
Right.
Well, great, Margo. Let's ask you. For your hotel specifically, tell me what your vision is of how you feel like the Tourism Improvement District is going to help you as a hotel.
So, for the Battle House, I'm not successful unless the rest of the city is successful. So Spike's Hotel, the downtown hotels, and even the hotels in the outlying areas, we're kind of all in for one. I think when I look at TID and how it helps me and the market is, 70% of the funding is going to go directly towards marketing. And we're going to be in new places and some old places that we've been in a more consistent basis. And I think that's really important. Because of our lack of funding in previous years, we weren't always able to be out in front of that 8-hour drive or that convention person. So I think that's going to be very, very key for us. David has, we call her kind of the super geek over at Visit Mobile. She really uses technology and research on how to validate our marketing efforts. And, there's always naysayers that are out there and, how do you know that this advertisement worked, or how do you know this promotion worked, et cetera, et cetera. And now we're able to really validate that. And I think that's exciting. And if the validation says it didn't work, okay, that's fine. Then we can go on to, work on something else. But I think we just have a lot more opportunity to get out in front of people and sell our story and tell our story. But I think the other important part is, 15% of the money also goes towards capital improvement. And that was really kind of something Spike and I felt pretty strongly on, because we've always been some of those folks that say, oh, we don't have great signage, or, I wish we could help, put some money towards a soccer complex, promote at different events in Mobile. And now we have that opportunity to do it, work on gateway improvements for different areas throughout the city. So I think the capital improvement parts are very helpful. And, I also think about, our mayor said to me several years ago, if you all have the money, if you could go out and kind of do some of the legwork, sometimes cities they can't pivot that quickly as a private sector can. So I've kind of taken those words, and those have kind of sunk in with me as we move forward and we start looking at different projects we want to do and help contribute to the overall improvement of our city. And that's not to say that we need a lot of improvement. We're just amplifying those improvements.
Totally, totally. Okay, and Spike, we've gone completely away from Kent at this point. Spike, same question. What are your thoughts for the industry as a whole moving forward?
Yeah, it ties into what Margo and David have already said, but it's just it gives us an opportunity as an industry that we've never had before. The marketing piece, being in places where we've never been before. There's been a lot of convention focus in the past, like trying to use the money that Visit Mobile has available to get the most bang for your buck, which is a large convention that comes in town and fills the downtown areas and pushes the compression out to the other areas that are involved in this. This is going to be focused on leisure marketing mostly. And I think getting the other hotels on board and the people that aren't necessarily downtown saying we need more leisure, we need more leisure, we need vacationers, we need individual business travelers. That's what made it an easier sell. Now we have an opportunity as a destination to go out and market to those, which we've never really been able to do significantly. And then back to the capital improvement piece, it's a small amount of the money, but it's things that individually as hotels, some of the other hotels, it really helps them out. The soccer complex the county just broke ground on last week. We can go in there and say, hey, we know you're struggling to get the bathrooms built. Why don't you let us help you do that? And it'll make that soccer complex easier to sell to sports groups. Or that one of our areas in the hotel just comes right off the freeway, and you get off the freeway and it's just there's really nothing there. So if you can enhance that and beautify it and make the arrival experience into that section of the city, it helps the hotels. So those kind of ideas are one of the reasons we got it done, because it makes people excited. It gives you an opportunity of things that the municipality may not necessarily do, or it may not be on their radar, and it's important to us. So we have an opportunity to do it. So the main goal is to drive room nights. And I believe with all the leisure marketing, we'll be able to do that. I think when you add this much money to your marketing efforts, and I've told the hotel guys this a million times, it's impossible for it not to make a difference. When you're either doubling or tripling, whatever the number is, your marketing efforts, it's going to pay off one way or the other. And I think that's why it was a little easier to get everybody on board, people that really don't participate in this stuff typically as a city, or they sit in their hotel and they're just there by themselves and they use Expedia and that's their marketing plan. We're going to help them get some more room nights. So I just think it helps us overall from an awareness standpoint, and I think it helps our occupancy.
Yeah, Spike, to me, that goes back to control, right?
Yeah.
Who knows at what pace the municipality is going to be able to move in its infrastructure improvement. And now you guys can privately fund the improvement of the destination product, which in the end will increase the room nights booked. And you have control over that.
That's the beauty of it. That's why people are excited.
I love it. Okay. All right, David, let's go back to you. Tell me about how this new infusion of money from the Tourism Improvement District has changed or enhanced your marketing campaign.
Yeah, so I want to go start with Margo's point in terms of validating the marketing efforts. This is really going to put us in a box where we can never really play it before in terms of accountability of the spend and the results of campaigns that you do digitally. So, we can get someone like Conversant in here now, and they can measure everything we do, which is really important. Once the lodging corporation and the board says, here's what we want to spend, here's how we want to do it, we can take these campaigns and go after it and then give them specific results of the spend in the market, whether it, in terms of lodging room nights that produced in revenue to restaurant spend, food and beverage, retail. We can actually see the results of that. And I think that's very key because that brings the accountability piece in. I think we can really do some tremendous things we've never done in terms of sponsored media coverage for advertorials that include print and digital components that basically are broad story topics that really celebrate our food and our lifestyle and the eco and our culture and our downtown and all of Mobile. We can really do some cool stuff to start with photography for all of our lodging folks that may not have the money to get their assets and showcase their new renovations and those kind of things and build the storyboard for them. And then it lastly, again, goes back to some digital marketing opportunities that through SEM and through display or social or search targeting, this multicultural segments and things that we've never been able to play in. And then to go back to some of the Garden and Gun and the Southern Living and the National Geographic Traveler and Food and Wine. Again, promotional materials. It gives our lodging corporation the ability to do all that and more.
Great. And, I think the fact that you're able to use some of those funds to create more validation through data tools and technology and attribution, man, that just shows more and more value to the stakeholders in the destination. Tiffany, let's give you an opportunity, as destinations are considering, hey, should I pursue this? What's your major piece of advice for a destination that's looking at a TID?
David Clark and I, we've become good friends through this process. There's been a lot of conversations about some of the obstacles that we've come across, and I think right after the final hearing, David and I were on the phone, and we were talking about the key pillars that were necessary for the success to really bring this all together. David mentioned earlier that engagement, and Spike did as well, engagement of the stakeholders and those that maybe are not active in your everyday conversations is key. Also, engagement and education of your local government officials and leadership is key. If they don't know or don't understand what your organization does and how it translates to benefit your community at large, that work should begin today. Really, it takes the collaboration and ultimately the approval of all of the entities that I just mentioned. And so I would say that is a key element, but also know why you need this. This sounds very simple, but know why you need this and how you will use it. If you're a DMO and you really are looking for supplemental funding, understanding why you need it, and not as just a comparison against maybe your competitors, oh, well, this city in my state has $2 million more a year than I do. And, so I should be on par with them. That's generally not an acceptable reason to a government or to the stakeholders in particular, but more so, what can you not do now? David just went through a whole list that he now can do as a result of having the supplemental funding. And so if you haven't put thought into what you need and what you lose as a result of not having the funding and what you will be able to accomplish for your businesses post formation, those are really key elements that you have to know well, have some data to support it, and then use that to engage local governments and your local stakeholders, your lodging businesses and leadership to start building education. You also need our support in the education process. It is a legal process. There's a lot of questions and what ifs to the elements of the formation in the long term commitments. So we are happy to help you, support you through that process.
Yeah, I'm hearing build relationships with your stakeholders and have a plan. Like those are the two most important pieces, and I think that's great. And then obviously Civitas who developed this, can help people through the process. So we're kind of running out of time, but I want to give Kent and Margo. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Spike and Margo, I'd like to give you two the opportunity to give your piece of advice for whether it's lodging partners or lodging association members that are considering something like this, a piece of advice as they approach a tourism improvement district.
Go ahead, Margo.
Oh, okay. You know what? You have to know your stakeholders. We have a really diverse group of ownership of the hotels here in Mobile, and just taking the time to talk to them and understanding what their needs are. Just, my business is convention and leisures. Theirs might be all leisure. They have different focuses, and just be patient. It took many, I can't even tell you how many meetings we went to with these folks to try and explain it to them. And you can't just say it's one and done. You kind of have to keep going back and persevere with that, and understand, and really just kind of understanding their needs really is what it boils down to.
Great advice. Awesome. Spike?
Yeah, I think we've covered it, but it's relationship building and it's trust and it's collaboration. They need to be able to trust the DMO first. I mean, there are people that say, I need more business. What's the DMO doing for me? David's done a fantastic job building trust throughout the industry. So having these extra funds and being able to do that, they need to trust what it's going to be done. And that data analytics was one of the things you have to sell to them and explain, like Margo said. But throughout that communication and that process, you do learn what their needs are. And let's face it, they're different than Margo's and my needs for the hotels. And so you need to address those needs in the plan, in the actual district management plan. And then certainly as you get into more detail in the specific marketing plan. So it can't be a selfish process. It has to be all in. It has to be for your industry as a whole. You have to take your individual hotel hat on or your downtown hotel hat, take that hat off and think industry as a whole. And that takes a lot of trust, a lot of collaboration. And again, a lot of meetings we had with outside of the lodging association, which we've garnered these great relationships and friendships with all the rest of our hotel owners over the years getting there, and everybody is excited about it. So as Margo said, it was, I didn't know we were a record for being slow, like Tiffany said, but we did have some hiccups along the way. We did have to go change state legislation at one point. So
Wow.
But everybody was patient and we finally got there, and everybody's actually really excited about it. So getting the participation now isn't that difficult as far as electing the board and getting participation from the hoteliers to be on that board and decide how we spend that money. We're getting a lot of excited people out there. So it's going to be great when it's all said and done, and it's going to make our destination that much better.
Awesome. And David, I'm going to give you the final word. I'd like to have you give us your main takeaway for destinations that are in a similar situation to where Mobile was prior to creating a tourism improvement district.
Yeah. So, Adam, knowing that you never know what tomorrow brings in these times, you just have to be super innovative with revenue stream resources and then how you're going to spend them to affect lodging results. I think this pandemic is another reminder for all of our DMOs and our organization that we work for a lodging community. We've got to get heads in beds. That should be our mission every day that we wake up. And if we do that well, the rest of the destination benefits from all the other restaurants, attractions, and museums. So, you have to affect results. You have to measure results. And that's pretty easy to do in terms of star reports and that kind of thing. But in today, you've got to chip away with your revenue streams. And the Tourism Improvement District is going to be a golden one for us for many years to come.
Great. Well, thanks to all of you. I know that, it's hard to manage this many people without us being able to see each other's faces and reactions, but I appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts, experience, and opinions on how to continue to diversify funding for destinations going through a very difficult time.
Great. Well, thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody for listening. This has been another great episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. If you haven't yet joined the Destination Marketers LinkedIn group, if you haven't joined the Destination Marketers Slack channel, you're missing out on some of the tangible content that's available through the show, like some of what we're going to post from Civitas after this episode airs. Also, if you enjoyed today's episode, if you found it valuable, please leave us a rating or a review. That really does help our podcast to continue to grow. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week. Okay, everybody, we've been talking a lot over the last couple of months about recovery campaigns and what that looks like. And the coronavirus has really thrown so many of us for a loop. If you have found yourself struggling to know how you're going to plan your recovery campaign, or if you're not sure if you've got the right plan in place, my team has been putting together these recovery campaigns for several destinations. We would love to take that opportunity to provide one for you. If you're interested in getting some guidance for your recovery campaign, whether it's just for us to take a look and give you some high-level recommendations, or if you're looking for someone to help you see it all the way through, we'd love the opportunity to take a look. If you're interested in having us take a look and help you come up with the right recovery campaign, please email me directly at adam@relicagency.com and we'll get you set up.